Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. My mom met my father at 19 during a period in her life when long absences came in the form of droughts and black crows that had broken their wings through misfortune. I was born in the summer of 1966, the very day my father stood trial on outstanding warrants. Though I don't remember him, I was told that he held me twice in prison. I feel good about tonight. I'm a little bit nervous. I always get nervous when there's people there that I know. Good, thank you. You too. I was hoping that you were going to come. I was asking about you. See, the one thing that I have inherited from my dad, unfortunately, is my dad's hair.
As a Metis person, I love how he writes about the sash, the moccasins, the fiddle music. I love how he conducts himself in his readings. I'm very proud of him that he speaks and writes in Cree. He's reclaiming what was taken away through history from the Metis people, but not just for the Metis, for all Aboriginal and world Indigenous people. That's why he's such an incredible ambassador. When you're reading Gregory Schofield, yes, it's a poem, but yes, it's also a song. But most of all, when you read Gregory Schofield, you've entered into ceremony.
The unorthodox funeral of Ron Miller. Kaddish, Kaddish, this great prayer. I have only this photograph of you holding my mother, me pushing towards the earth inside her. Kadosh, holy, the river flowing behind you. Kadosh, the last green fingers of grass. Kadosh, the pink hollyhocks of our final summer standing at attention, momentary and upright. They got married in Wannock, BC, the little community where my mom grew up. She had basically told him that she wasn't willing to raise a baby on the run. And she managed to convince him to turn himself in. While my father was behind bars, my mom met another guy, and we moved to northern Manitoba. Suddenly, I had a sister, I had a dad, and I had a mom who seemed so incredibly happy. I remember the smell of bacon and eggs very, very, very early in the morning because, of course, he would be getting up and going to work, and Mom would be up cooking for him. And, you know, I remember her humming and listening to a lot of the music that she really loved, like Wolf Carter. Then one day, everything suddenly came crashing down. She started acting really strange. Then one day she was gone. She was just simply gone. She had been flown down to the Alberta hospital in Edmonton, which was, I mean, essentially the nut farm. This was before her lupus had been diagnosed. I think that the doctors were very aware of her issues with addictions and things like that. The doctors really tried to convince her to put me up for adoption. She refused flat out on every occasion about signing these papers. I was separated from her when I was 5, and I think I saw her again when I was about 7. She had undergone over 70 shock treatments while she was hospitalized. It didn't matter. We moved closer to the river, dodged crazies at the Marlowe apartments or drug addicts flying from the roof. It didn't even matter that she fell off the wagon, charged up bottles from Fat Paul till check day. She drank at home, and no one came around. What mattered was the ex-cop who took us kids for ice cream, whose hands strayed beneath our swim trunks when no one was looking. It was little Danny who finally spilled the beans. First time I saw her, spitting and wild. The only time I ever heard her say she'd kill the bastard if it weren't for jail or losing me.
No, stay there. Stay there. I want to go up there.
I'll bring you up there. How are you?
This is the new book.
That's the new book.
Isn't that great? What a great photo, eh?
I actually brought you.
Greg, you've had a very successful writing life. You've published 6 books. You've won many awards. You've received acclaim all across Canada. We went back to your childhood. What is it that you wanted for in a life?
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't necessarily plan or even think about being a writer or being an artist. Really, the inspiration for me was simply about being heard.
What does that mean?
There was so much kind of chaos around me growing up. It's not that there weren't opportunities to be heard, it just seemed that everybody was always caught up in their own stuff. This place used to be, I guess it's called the Maple Inn now, but it used to be known as the Marlowe Apartments. And where we're at in Maple Ridge is, I guess, essentially known as Haney Harlem. It was here that I met my Auntie Georgina. I asked her, I said, "Are you an Indian?" And she said, "Well," she said, "I'm a Nahio." And I said, "What's a Nahio?" And she said, "That's a Cree Indian." But she said, "I'm a half-breed." And I said, "What's a half-breed?" And she said, "Well, a half-breed is half this and half that." And I didn't understand what this and that was. So I said, "Well, what do you mean half this and half that?" And she said, "Well, a half-breed is half angel and a half devil." I grew up with a lot of stories from my Auntie Georgina. We always used to sit up really, really late at night at her dining room table. We always had tea, and she'd always make bannock. She was a wonderful bead worker. And while I was trying to thread her needles for her, she would tell me stories. And this was one of the stories, almost word for word. Okay, this is called "Oh, Dat Agnes." Wah, Auntie would roar between chipped teeth and slap her legs so the dogs jumped and barked. "You know, she told me her father was a Swede, huh? But boy, could she ever speak good Cree. One time we had to clean the chapel and I says to her, 'Hey, Agnes, I wonder what the father's always drinking.' 'I don't know,' she says, shrugging her shoulders like this. 'Well, it must be good,' I says, 'cause he's always drinking it. Maybe we should try some, huh?' 'Oh my, Georgie,' she says, making a fat cuckoo's face. 'This is good.' 'Well, what you meant though?' I says to her and grabbed that jug of wine. Well, the next thing you know, we forgot all about that chapel. Then that crazy thing started singing. Boy, oh boy, she sounded like a goddamn cat howling at the moon. Well, we finished off that jug and started on the next one. 'Hey, what about this song?' I says. 'I don't care what they say. Al demonios sakita say.' Well, that Agnes was laughing so hard she farted and falled over. Holy cripe, next thing you know, that Sister Dennis came charging up to the altar and says, 'Hey, you girls, what's going on in here?' And that was that. Boy, did we ever catch hell. Her's dad laughed about it though, told everyone we got drunk on Christ's blood. Well, kwamachamantawak shit chuckle lighting another cigarette. And there was the time we...
You were talking about the chaos in your life. What was that chaos? I mean, what was the chaos that surrounded you? Can you describe that?
You know, moving around.
City to city, town to town?
Well, town to town, city to city. You know, mom being gone for long periods of time, growing up with alcoholism, or being surrounded by abusive men, or even having that, you know, perpetrated on you. My second stepdad started beating mom up quite a bit, and beating her up quite brutally, and beating me up, and it was really, really, really scary, and it was really awful. And, you know, I recall being so angry with my mom for allowing this into our lives. You know, I was in grade 5. I was, how old would have I been? 7, 8? This whole world of craziness and disruption and violence was around me, swirling nonstop. I was still very much in touch with Auntie Georgina, and by this point she had really become a refuge for me. She was really the only respite that I had. With everything that was going on in the house, at least I was able to go to her and feel safe for a while. When I would stay overnight with her, we would sit up late and she would be sewing, she would be doing some beadwork, and she would be telling me stories in Cree, and then she would be translating them. As I got older, I concentrated more on the Cree side because it was something special, and somehow it made me special. No matter how young or old, sober, half cut or gone, she'd fluff the pillows spread and tuck her homemade quilts under my chin, count the patches in Cree starting sometimes at 9, 10 to see if I was listening, if I'd laugh and say, Gishkwayan, just the way she had taught me. I'd nod and wait, the song, a bluebird on her lips, lifting me to dreams. This is where I used to escape everything at the top of the hill, the apartments and the people and everything, and this is where I used to come down and I would daydream. I'd daydream about the places that I wanted to go, or maybe the things that I wanted to do. I thought about singing a lot. I wanted to be a singer. This is the tunnel as a little boy where I used to come and sing. I think this is probably where my creativity and my dreams of being a creative person probably began from. I would sing, just I think, you know, really to hear my own voice. Sleep, baby, sleeping while angels watch over you. Listen to your mother, dear, while she sings to you. So much of the trauma around my stepdad was coming out in these awful, awful, terrible nightmares. It wasn't until I was 14 that she left him for good. He had said that if he ever caught me alone in an alley or ever caught me alone on the street at night, that he would break my arms and he would break my legs and that he would kill me. I couldn't talk to Mom at all. Half the time she would be passed out, or she would be completely blottoed and completely emotionally unavailable. I decided that it would just be easier if I was dead. So I was taken to the adolescent psychiatric unit, and one of the youth care workers that had worked with me, I got quite close with him. And really, he was the first man that I had ever trusted in my entire life. He was very soft, he was very gentle, he listened to me, he sang songs, he played the guitar. I really, really admired him, and I really grew close to him. He was able to really pull me out of this shell. You know, I essentially began a relationship, a physical relationship with him. He would be coming to my room and laying with me, not really having sex, but, you know, kissing. I very much believed that he loved me, that I was special. Everything always seemed to happen around me. People always seemed to do what they wanted, no matter how hurtful it was, no matter how disruptive, no matter how painful it was. And somehow I just had to take it. And that I didn't have a right to say no, or I didn't have a right to say, I don't like this. So for me, when I actually began to think about writing, suddenly I realized that within that, there might be a voice somewhere, my voice.
He was angry before he met me. His publisher asked me if I would edit his book. And, you know, here's this white man going to tell me how to write poetry, going to interfere with my poetry, going to impose his white view of the world on my native voice. And I said, either you trust me or you don't trust me. He's a profoundly political poet. If you look deep inside of his work, you see a profound political angst at operation.
If you're wanting to create some kind of healing space, not only for yourself, but for other people, I really believe that my healing process is your healing process. Your healing process is the person beside you, their healing process, that we all become responsible for that.
I felt sometimes the poems were too long, or they were very discursive, or I thought sometimes they were slight, that he wasn't really getting at the depths of what he was doing, that he would go and act the part of the kind of the lounge lizard, you know, where he was this kind of cool, smart, sort of sexy Indian, and the poems sometimes lent themselves to that. And I would ask him to go a little farther with that, go a little deeper. I mean, I knew that Greg was a habitué of strip clubs and bars, and he loved to go in and tantalize and provoke and to dance around the patrons of those bars and look for arguments and for fights. And I wanted to find that in the poetry. I said, you know, if that's there in the life, let's find it in the poetry as well.
Homeless as I am, I'm exact about my rights, so exact, in fact, I act downright radical. Once we were good enough to be Aboriginal, even original Canadians, way back before they took up hockey and claimed our lakes. Those immigrants were too busy playing hooky on our grandmothers to notice they left behind a new nation to run their stolen country. My friend Laura Wasakes was the one that had first brought me to Batoche, and she didn't tell me that she was bringing me here. So as we were pulling into the fairgrounds, I asked Laura, I said, well, where are we and what are we doing? And she started to explain to me what the Back to Batoche days were, and you know, it was a Métis celebration, and you know, it was half-breed people getting together, and fiddling contest, jigging contest, and you know, just this huge community event. And I remember being so angry with her, feeling so betrayed that she had brought me here, because this was so completely out of my consciousness. I wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. I had learned in school that Métis people had no culture. You know, they weren't like Indians. Gabriel Dumont, Louis Riel, all of these instrumental people with trying to petition the government and secure this homeland. They weren't presented as heroes. And I didn't, like a lot of Métis people, I didn't want to be aligned with non-heroes, aligned with a group that had no culture. We went to this video presentation of Métis history, and I sat there still wondering, what did it mean to be Métis? By the time the lights came up in the theater, I didn't realize that I had these tears streaming down my face. And I looked at Laura, and I just remember kind of mouthing the words to her, "Thank you." And she had reached over to me and she had said in Cree, "Bikiwi," she said, which means you're home, you've come home, Bikiwi. Mom was getting sicker. You know, I wanted to be close to her. And so, of course, I'd come home with this wonderful, incredible sense of pride. And she had brought out this brochure and she said, "Well, you've already been there once before. I took you there as a baby." My very first gig was to do a reading at a first night celebration in Maple Ridge. And I remember being so nervous about this reading, yet so excited at the same time. It was the first time I was ever going to be reading my poetry in public. And out of the corner of my eye, I see my mom walk in, and she's wearing her old coat, old beat-up cowboy boots and her cowboy hat. And she goes and sits in the back. And I was just so utterly embarrassed, thinking that, you know, everybody is going to know that she is my mother, and, you know, she's probably drunk, and, you know, they just, she's totally fulfilling a stereotype. And I so hated her in that moment, and I so wished that she hadn't come. And it wasn't until really a long time after she died that I began to realize the way that I was feeling was the way that society had taught me to feel. My mom wasn't drunk. She was so proud of me that she sat there with her head down, cherishing and listening to every word that came out of my mouth, that she was so proud of me. This woman managed to survive a lot of obstacles, so that is definitely not a victim in my eyes. That's a warrior woman. Mom, as long as I remember north, south, east, or west, houses, apartments, or shacks, roads winding endless miles, or streets wet with rain, drumming sad in the night and me to sleep, she'd rub my back, draw letters that spelled Greg or love, comb my hair with fingers that counted change, the days till Christmas or my birthday, the hours till dawn, lulling my heart even now, her song, safe, assuring as ever.
Greg's search has always been one for who am I, what personage do I have? I mean, he's born Metis, so he's half Scottish, he's half native. So right off the bat, he's a kind of a bifurcated human in the middle of the Canadian experience. The Indian community doesn't accept him. The white community doesn't accept him. So he's in a kind of, he's a road allowance people, right? And so his struggle was first to find that identity, to clarify that. Then his search was the sexual identity. What am I? You know, who am I there? Am I heterosexual? Am I bisexual? Am I gay?
There was being gay, which was wrong, and then there was normal, which was being right. And to be right and to be normal meant you had girlfriends. And I wanted simply to be normal.
I think he's in a place now where he's in love, where he has finally found a kind of family in a relationship with someone else who he's close to, and who he finally loves and trusts enough to trust his body and his spirit with, which is really, really hard for him. It's been hard for him to do that.
Earth smells love medicine seeping into my bones, and I knew his wind voice catching the sleeping leaves. Oh, kakimuak.
Love Medicine in One Song was this beautiful celebration of love, wonderfully erotic poetry, very sweet poetry that celebrated relationships in Greg's life, and it was the book that really caught the attention across North America. People who had known his poetry before but hadn't realized that he had this other aspect to his work.
Oh, kakimuak. I dreamed him weaving spider threads into my hair, fingers of firefly, buzzing ears, the song, his flute, stealing clouds from my eyes. Kakimuak, I woke, numb in my bones.
I think through writing Love Medicine in One Song, Greg became much more sure of himself and sure of his feelings, and accepted it was okay for him to love men and be in relationships with men.
This journey that you've been on since I've known you, and I think it started long before that. Right. There's almost like a quest, for identity, to find Greg. It's almost like you were searching for Greg Schofield and trying to find him.
Patrick, the best way I can describe it is that for really 38 years of my life, I walked around feeling that half of me was complete with identity and mom's family and genealogy, but there was always that missing other half, that constant quest to not only know where he was physically, but to know who he was as a person.
This is the famous picture, isn't it? I remember looking at it and going, he looks Jewish. And you got all offended and said, well, what does Jewish look like?
Right.
I remember you were really pissed off, actually, because I don't think you wanted to know. I think you wanted it to be easy. Oh yeah, he's Métis, because you'd kind of dealt with that stuff already. And then when I pulled the old Yiddish papa out of the hat, I don't think that fit into your scheme of things, if you know what I mean.
I found myself that night going repeatedly to the mirror and looking at myself and going, if my dad looks like a Yid, then maybe I look like a Yid. And I remember looking at myself and going, but what is that? If I am a Jew, Papa, I could say, oy vey, you putz, why did you leave me? If I am a Jew, I could sit Shiva for you a lifetime over. I could cover the mirror's ghost, your reflection I have never seen. I could say, oy vey, you putz, why did you leave me? I think the catalyst for me was not so much wanting to find out if my dad was Jewish, but wanting to find out who he was. And so, being that I knew that he had been in trouble with the law, and I really didn't know to what extent he had been in trouble, I started the whole process of getting in touch with the Vancouver Police Department. I had to go through the what was it, the Freedom of Information and the Protection of Privacy Act in order to try to access any files, and I didn't think that I was going to have any luck at all. Lo and behold, they sent me all of this paperwork on my dad. In a way, I was almost kind of let down because really, he was a small-time petty criminal. Bad checks, fraud, really, really petty stuff. And, you know, here I was expecting almost this kind of mafia type of guy. And of course, I didn't know if he was dead or alive. My first interest in being a Jew was learning how to cook. I wanted to make Jewish food. 2 years before I had found my dad, I remember my partner Mark decided to make me potato latkes and matzo ball soup. And I absolutely hated it. I hated the taste of the potato latkes, hated the matzo ball soup, thought it was the grossest, most disgusting thing I'd ever eaten in my life. I wanted a piece of bannock, and I wanted, you know, some smoked fish or what have you, and I would have been happy. So part of this, after finding all of this out, was that I was bound and determined I was going to become this incredible Jewish cook. And part of it was really my grandmother. I started hearing her voice. Like I could hear her talking in my ear, like standing here as I'm standing at the frying pan, I can hear her saying, "There's too much oil in the pan. You can always tell that they're going to be good by the way they smell." And I was hearing all this stuff, not even knowing if I was making potato latkes right, which of course I wasn't because I was using lard at the time, right? It was a halakhic nightmare. He's using lard and he's making potato latkes. Oy vey, what's his problem? I've since learned to make latkes in, you know, regular vegetable oil, right? Keeping kosher, you know. Bubby, the day I am most angry at my father, my lover finds a dreidel in the yard. A brucha, he tells me, small and silent, as sure as I am the son of the man who forgot to claim me. You know, I was really at the end of my rope that day and really close to giving up again. And you call me outside and you're holding this paper, this colored piece of paper in your hand, and practically jumping up and down and saying, you know, "Oh my God, do you know what this is?" It's a dreidel. A dreidel is used by kids at Hanukkah. A dreidel has blown into our backyard. I knew that...
That she was there.
Yeah, I knew that my grandmother was there.
I know.
And I knew that she was saying, don't give up, because you're just so close. Don't give up this time. And I knew. I mean, I knew that there was another side to who I was. And suddenly it became real. Bubby, the day I am most angry at my father, my lover finds a dreidel in the yard. When he is sleeping and I have placed this small sign upon the table, when I have lit 2 candles, one for me, my father, I will touch it to my lips, kiss kadosh each Hebrew letter. Tonight, Bubby, all is as should be. All is well. Here, a miracle has happened. Well, a couple of days later, I got a big package from the Winnipeg Police Department. It had both my grandparents' names and the addresses of where they had lived. Probably over a period of, at least 10, 15 years in Winnipeg. And with my grandmother's information, they had her name, and they had the year that she died, which was 1969. I thought that there might be a possibility that the Winnipeg Free Press, that her obituary might be in there and that it might be archived somewhere. So Mark and I decided to head off to the university library. Yes, do you have the microfiche for the Winnipeg Free Press for May 1969?
Sure.
Do you remember how to use it?
No.
Okay, well, let's play with it. So let's find the obits. It's in the classifieds, right?
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Up here.
There she is.
Where? Yeah. So suddenly on May 18th, 1969, at the Winnipeg General Hospital, Ida Gertrude Miller, Miss Miller leaves to mourn besides her husband, one son, Ronald, of Vancouver, BC.
Just after that.
So I had found where she was buried in Brookside Cemetery in Winnipeg, and right beside her was my grandfather. We'd found the microfiche for my grandfather's obituary, and it was a little bit more detailed. Survived by one son, Ron Miller, and wife Anne of London, England. So, of course, I was absolutely shell-shocked. What on earth, was my dad doing in the UK? It was unbelievable. My grandfather's obituary made mention of his beloved friend, who she has since passed away. But I took a chance and called the directory assistants, and sure enough, she was listed. And she had no idea who I was. I introduced myself and told her what I had been looking for and what I had found. And she told me that my dad had passed away. My grandfather's girlfriend had given me Anne's phone number in the UK. And I remember I wasn't quite sure of what the time change was between Alberta and between the UK, but I remember just watching the hours tick by on the clock until I could contact her.
It was about 6:15 in the morning, and the telephone rang, and when the telephone rings at that time in the morning, you think, God, there must be something really wrong. So I dashed into the hall in my nightie and picked it up, and the voice at the other end of the phone said, I don't know if you know me, but my name is Gregory Schofield. And I thought, I've heard that name before.
But my heart sank when she had said that they had been, and specifically my dad had been, expecting my call. Suddenly I went from this incredible elation to this incredible anger again, that why had he been expecting my call when for 38 years of my life I had been expecting his call? It didn't make sense to me. If I am a Jew, if I am any shadow of you, then praise the little boy who lit you candles, who prayed your imagined voice, your feet, your arms at the door. If I am a Jew, you will understand, Papa, you will say, Oy vey, I'm a putz for leaving you. I didn't ask her, I didn't say, what was my dad's background? I said, was my dad Jewish?
Your background it's like a great basket full of identities. I mean, you're Jewish, you're Métis, you've got Cree, you're a street kid, you're fatherless, you've got too many mothers, you've got aunties, you've got so many identities. It's unbelievable.
This is dangerous territory, though, for me, because the thing is that what happens with naming those things is that you put yourself into boxes and naming those things. And I'm very opposed to being put in any kind of box.
You've always been like that.
Yes. And I'm still like that, and I will always be like that. Probably not answering the question, saying, I identify as Métis, I identify as Jewish, I identify as being gay. You know, those boxes are very, very oppressive, and they're very, very limiting. I'm never going to be able to look him in the eye and challenge him and have him be accountable. But I have to keep reminding myself that I found him. And really, had I not found him, I wouldn't have found a part of myself.
Hello.
Hello.
Come in.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good.
You don't have to take your boots off.
Can I give you a hug?
Yes.
So I'm dying to ask, do I look anything like my dad?
A bit.
Yeah?
Not too much, but
No?
for sort of there. Yeah. Well, your dad made a lot of home videos, but this is the only one that actually shows him on. So I thought you might like to look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Is it breakwater?
That was Dad's voice?
That's your dad's voice.
In Istanbul.
In the palace gardens, we find royalty
Oh,
sitting
that's Dad?
That's your
on
dad.
the local thrones.
There you are.
You'll notice that there is Lord Ronald of Saskatchewan, Lady Pamela of Saskatchewan.
Uh-oh.
There, that's all.
That's it?
That, in all of the video that we took, that's the only bit that actually shows him. There, do you want to watch any more?
No, I was just listening to his voice.
The view from the palace.
I put these in an album after your dad died.
Right.
They came from your grandfather.
Right.
So
So we get to look
have
at
a
some
look.
pictures.
Now, I know most of the people in there, but some of them Dad didn't write on the
Right.
back. And guess who that is?
Wow. This is Dad?
That's Dad.
Wow. You see, this is what I've been dying to see because I wanted to see how much I look like Dad, right? Look at that. I've got a little part in my hair.
Yeah.
After he met Anne, he totally turned over a new leaf. They got married, they moved to England, and he trained to be a psychiatric nurse. So he had really made something of himself. I wanted to show you this one of Mum because that's probably one of the best ones that I have of her. Is that how she looked when you met her?
Yeah.
And you and Dad had met her because you wanted to figure out me,
Yeah,
right?
that's right, yeah.
And how was Mum with that?
She was fine, but she said that you were hers, not his, and she didn't want any assistance with bringing you up.
Right, right. And you see, the thing is that throughout my whole life, she never ever told me that. She never told me about meeting you. She never ever told me that you and Dad had gone there. I knew nothing about that.
Yeah.
You know, my idea was that
They just disappeared.
yeah, my dad just disappeared and that was it. So, you know, I had no idea. For all these years, I blamed him because I had always wondered why didn't Dad contact me? Why didn't he find me? Why didn't he try to find me?
He felt that he hadn't got the right.
My own instinct is that in finding my dad, in a way it's almost been too neatly packaged. Not that the process has come easy, because it hasn't, but the presentation is too neat. The package is too neat. The package was never neat with my mom. The package was always in disarray. And in that disarray, there was something real about it. If I am a Jew and I see you among the old men at the kosher market, and if you are worn and bent, perhaps holding a suitcase filled with letters and lies, I could say, you old putz, why didn't you write me? And Papa, if there is any good in you, you will send me all kind wishes. If I am a Jew, you will forgive me when I say, oy vey you putz, why did you leave me? P.S. I love you. My dad was always a mystery. And I think my dad will always be a mystery. He's always going to be that shadow. Papa, I have washed and cleaned your body 39 years. I have wrapped you in white linen 39 years. I have laid you in this simple pine box, closed the lid to my heart 39 years. Magnified and sanctified be God's great name in the world. Papa, forgive, I have not cut the pocket of my shirt. I have not marked this loss, leaving my face unshaven. Forgive, it's been more than 7 years. I have seen the image of you, my own piece puzzle face unfinished in the mirror. Forgive, I have not taken to sitting on this crate of sorrow, though I have sat waiting for this day more than a year to sing home your bones, to say Papa, Kaddish. B'chayachon uvyamachon Kaddish Al Israel Talmidahan Kaddish Al Nahamo Al Shevyaho Kaddish Al Rafalo Ugiolo Kaddish Al Saliho Wahapra